You're watching TimesXP and I'm Dhrutiya 3, and Donald Trump's plan to deport millions of undocumented immigrants has raised significant concern about the financial and logistical challenges that are involved. The plan, which is one of the largest deportation efforts in the United States history, aims to remove 11 million undocumented immigrants, and that is a promise that builds on Trump's previous policies and seeks to increase enforcement at a much higher level. In the meanwhile, Tom Homan, Trump's appointed board, has emphasized that this operation would require huge funding from Congress, the construction of the additional detention center, and the hiring of a large number of officials. Currently, the US government has the capacity to hold around 40,000 people in detention, but under Trump's plan, the government would need to hold between 50,000 to 70,000 people at any given time. Now, this expanded capacity represents a massive increase in resources, and it raises question about how the US will fund and manage such a large-scale operation. Let me tell you, the cost of Trump's deportation plan are enormous, with estimates ranging from $88 billion annually for sustained deportation to as much as $315 billion for one-time mass deportation operation. If this plan is carried out over a decade, then total cost would approach nearly $1 trillion, making this one the most expensive federal initiative in the US history. Now, to break this down, the construction of additional detention facility is one of the largest expenses. It is estimated that to deport 1 million people per year, the US would need 24 times the current detention capacity, which would cost about $167 billion. Additionally, the operation would require hiring 30,000 more officials to help with enforcement, making this the largest federal law enforcement agency in the US. Now, this would involve a significant training and equipment costs that are not fully accounted for in most of the estimates, but it would still represent a major financial burden for the government. Now, beyond these direct costs, the logistics of the deportation would also represent a significant financial challenge. Deporting millions of people would require massive increase in transportation resources. Let me give you an example. The US would need to expand its deportation flights, which would involve using military planes in addition to the commercial flights. The current transportation capacity would not be enough, so the government would need to enter into additional contracts for chartered flights as well. Furthermore, the deportation process is not as simple as moving people from one country to another. It involves legal hearing, appeals, and processing fee. In order to keep up with the pace of the deportation, the US would need to build and maintain over 1,000 new immigration courtrooms, which would be an additional financial burden. And wait, there's more. In addition to the direct cost of the deportation, there will be significant economic consequences for the US economy as a whole. One of the most immediate impacts would be a loss of tax revenue. Undocumented immigrants currently contribute $46.8 billion in federal taxes and $29.3 billion in state and local taxes every single year. Now, this also contributes to Social Security and Medicare, which actually contributes totaling $22.6 billion and $5.7 billion respectively, even though they cannot access these benefits. Now, removing this population would result in massive drop in tax revenue, putting additional strain on the US government's budget. Furthermore, the labor shortage would also be a very significant issue. Many industries such as agriculture, construction, and hospitality rely on immigrant labor, and deporting millions of people would create shortage in these vital sectors that are there. This would lead to higher costs for businesses, which would pass on to customers only. So, while Trump's campaign argues that cost of deportation is small as compared to cost of providing social services to the undocumented immigrants, critics actually pointed out that funding mechanisms for the plan are unclear. Trump's team has suggested that the plan can be paid for by eliminating government spending on the services for undocumented immigrants, but this remains vague. For the plan to move forward, Trump would need Congress to approve billions of dollars in new funding, and this could be a contentious political battle itself. Critics argue that even if Congress agrees to fund the operation, the actual cost of building the detention center, hiring the staff, and paying for the logistics would end up being much higher than it is anticipated. So in the long run, if the deportation effort is initially successful, it would require sustained funding over many years. Some estimates suggest that the cost of continued deportation could reach $88 billion every single year. Additionally, the massive scale of the operation would require unprecedented coordination between federal, state, and local agencies. This could be actually complicated by pushback from Democratic-led states and cities, many of which have laws in place that limit cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. Legal battles and protests from the affected communities could add more delays and costs to the plan. Furthermore, deporting millions of people would have a significant human cost, particularly in terms of family separation. Many immigrants have families in the US, and deporting them would mean breaking up these innocent families, which could lead to major social issue and public protest as well. So as I told you, that Trump's funding plan is still unclear, with his campaign arguing that the deportation costs are justified by the saving from removing the immigrants who are believed to be using public services. However, the logistics, funding, and political challenges involved in carrying out such a massive operation make it unclear whether the US can afford the exact cost or execute the plan in a way that Trump has promised. The company would face serious economic, logistic, and social consequences, making the actual implementation of the plan uncertain. While Trump's team remained committed to the plan, one thing is certainly clear, that this would be an incredibly costly and difficult process, both financially and politically. Well, for more such in-depth analysis, do follow TimesXP.